Welcome to our special Money and Esports series on Sports Geek. In this episode, I chat with Dharpan Rhandawa about the McLaren Shadow Project.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who sees similarities between esports stars and athletes, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and I do see similarities between esports stars and athletes. And this discussion with Dharpan Rhandawa about the McLaren Shadow Project actually illustrates it really well. This is part of a special sub-series of the Sports Geek podcast. If you're listening for the first time via this series, please check out the regular Sports Geek feed. You can find that at sportsgeekhq.com. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. This episode is from the Money and Esports series that we ran in Sydney on August 9, where I chatted with Dharpan Rhandawa from McLaren about the McLaren Shadow Project. Very similar to some of the discussions I'd had previously with Craig Neeb at NASCAR and Tom Halls looking at Formula E, in understanding the racing scene and esports and gaming, and understanding how it actually does help development of actual athletes. Very different to a lot of other esports and gaming, where it doesn't actually result in getting people on the pitch or on a court. In this case, we actually talked with Dharpan about actually getting the competitors that have played in the esports scene into actually cars. So it's a really interesting discussion, and really interesting to see what McLaren are doing in building out the McLaren Shadow Project. I really suggest you check it out. This is my chat with Dharpan Rhandawa from the McLaren Shadow Project. First of all, Dharpan, thank you very much for coming. You are Senior VP Asia Pacific for McLaren. Why does an F1 team get involved with esports?
Yeah, thank you for having me, everyone. So it's a good question. So a couple of years ago, we knew we had to explore this esports thing. Being racers, we wanted to be first to do it. So we also knew that some of the slides earlier showcased that racing was not a huge genre in esports, unless you're killing someone, shooting someone, robbing someone, punching someone. So we thought, right, we needed to do something a bit more creative. And we started, we wanted to get into esports to tap into a different demographic. Yep. We've been around as a brand for 50 years in racing. So we thought, how do we talk to a younger demographic? And that's why we got into it and started what we call then the world's fastest gamer, which is our first season of esports. And what that was basically was anyone, anywhere in the world could compete on PC, console, mobile, and compete on 4 of the world's most popular sim racing games. Forza, R-Factor 2, Real Racing, etc. And the fastest would qualify. The top 10 would go to the UK. And the winner, the world's fastest gamer, would win a 1-year contract being a test simulator driver for Fernando Alonso. Okay. And that was our first season.
And that's the thing, that's the bit that makes racing and what you're doing with the Shadow Project so different. Like when we talk, if I talk to the guys at NBA 2K or the E-League with FIFA, they're engaging with their gaming audience, but they're never going to actually end up playing a game. You're not going to be really good at NBA 2K and then facing up against LeBron James, and likewise, you're not going to end up on a pitch if you're good at FIFA. Whereas there's a real driver development piece that's part of the equation here for you, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, look, it all kind of happens. So sim racing is a big part of what we do in Formula One. So there's 22 races in the count, or 22 next year with Vietnam, but 21 this year. And when driver finishes a race in one Grand Prix, he's on a sim the next day practicing for the next Grand Prix. Yep. So sim racing is in our blood, is part of our development program, is what we do. So when Rudy Van Buren, who won season 1 of our competition, won the competition, and he was a test sim racing driver for Fernando at the time. We started testing him, and we were testing him for G-force, for cognitive, as we do throughout the entire boot camp. And this kid was good. I mean, he was really, really good. And Rudy started karting when he was 8, and he stopped karting because it was expensive. His dad ran out of money, and he started selling kitchen equipment in Holland. So now he's back in the sim, and we thought, right, let's measure how good this kid actually is. And what we learned was, you're right, if you're good at FIFA, you're never going to play for FC Barcelona. The transferable skills are not there. But if you're good at sim racing, we learned that the transferable skills was 85%. So we thought, right, let's do an experiment. We'll put Rudy into a car. We're either going to go to jail because we're going to kill Rudy, or we're going to be geniuses. So we got Rudy to sign a lot of papers, and we put him in a car, and Rudy absolutely whipped it in the race to Riyadh. He beat professional drivers, and it was because of so many different things, but fear is not there, and it was just gone. So the experiment was a success. I'm sitting here not in jail, and we decided to call it Shadow, as in shadowing the virtual world into the real world. And it's become really cool because now we've bypassed karting, and young boys and girls can actually get into the sport through esports, which is a really different spin from what we've heard today from everyone.
Yeah, completely. And, if you look at the latest data report from Simon Kemp of internet penetration in other parts of the world that don't have, we've got 100%. Everyone's got internet here in Australia. I mean, it's shitty internet, but we've got internet. But in different parts of the world that are still coming online, the Shadow Project now starts opening up motorsport and just to that new audience.
It's a completely new audience. You look at, I had a question the other day. Someone asked me, why isn't there a Formula One champion from India, from Africa, from China? Well, traditionally, to get into the sports, it's karting. Karting's expensive. Lewis Hamilton was a champion karter. Lando Norris, the kid driving for us now, I was talking to his dad the other day, and he said Lando started karting when he was 4. And it's expensive. It's an inhibitor to the sports. So now we'd like to think that, in China, it's growing. We've got participants all over the place. In season 1, we had about 30,000 participants. Last season, we had 500,000 people participated. This year, we should have significantly more. And now what's really cool is we know we're never going to be able to compete with a League of Legends in terms of numbers and broadcasts and whatnot. But what we're trying to do is something a bit different. It's how do we help young kids get into our sports at a grassroots level? How do we get brands to interact with something different, a spin on esports?
Yep.
And how do we help young boys and girls realize their dreams of becoming a Formula One or a motorsport driver?
I mean, one of the buzz terms in sport over the last 10 years has been fan engagement, and how do you produce content and how do you engage new fans? What kind of fans is the Shadow Project bringing in? Are you getting completely new fans to F1 where they've never watched it and coming in via the game, or is it like NBA 2K and FIFA do, which is that most of their fans are basketball and football fans anyway? Like, are you getting both benefits of both?
Yeah, look, we've just spent a lot of money with Ben and his company to do the only Formula One fan survey that we did. So we've got about 197 million fans around the world from a McLaren racing ecosystem. But then when you look at the McLaren Shadow Esports program, I mean, it's no difference to what we've heard tonight. 18 to 24, predominantly male skewed, young. I call them Gen C, Generation Connected, where they're on their phones for everything else but making a phone call. And so it's that kind of demographic. But they're also, if you look at it from ecosystem, you've got sports fans, then you've got Formula One fans and McLaren fans, and then you've got esports fans. So I think because our brand is 50 years old, because it's been around for a long time, we're getting a lot of younger audiences who are not hardcore McLaren or Formula One fans coming into the program. And then we've created stars like Rudy Van Buren, like Igor Froga, who won last year. And these guys, have become a beacon for telling the young people of the world that, hey, we were nobodies. We were little kids in suburbs and, in selling retail. And now we're worldwide. And Rudy's now racing full-time for Porsche. Fast forward 12 months, and he went out there, he tested, and now he's a superstar.
And do you think the travelling circus that is F1, 21 now, 22 stops, it's a major event that rolls in. Do you think things like the gaming element helps you with an activation piece to people are coming to an event and they also want to do some sims and because that's how they've connected with McLaren?
Yeah, so, we haven't done as much this is our third season and we're always looking to innovate. But we've got, in season one, all we focused on was the finals.
Yep.
Last year we did a few qualifiers. So we did our partners Logitech do a qualifier with a G Challenge. We did a qualifier with HTC Vive in virtual reality at China Joy, which had I think 500,000 people come through the doors in 3 days, which for an esports conference, which is mental. And this year we're doing one with the Singapore Tourism Board for the Asian qualifier. So they're going to activate everywhere, and then Singapore Grand Prix in September we'll have a qualifier, and the winner gets a direct seat into the top 10 for the finals. And so,
yeah, like Rob was talking about with tennis, you've got the option of integrating it with the big events that is the Grand Prix, but then being their own thing and having those events and having the esports fans come and watch the product itself.
Yeah, exactly right. So we've chosen to keep it on genre.
Yep.
Only because we've uncovered that, hey, there could be a pathway here into the real world. So that's the direction we've gone in, and so far it's working.
One of the things with the Shadow Project I found fascinating, because especially when I did the landscape before and said, here's these multiple titles, and you don't see many multi-title stars in esports. You're either a great League of Legends player or you're a great Fortnite player. Whereas with the Shadow Project, they're actually playing different titles. How have your players sort of going from Sims to then VR to then mobile games, how do they adapt?
It's a good question. So if you're a good sim racer, in theory, you should be good at playing quite a lot of these games quite well.
Yep.
Because what makes a good sim racer is many different things, but cognitive, concentration, your reflexes, it's no dissimilar to being in a Formula One car. That's why the skills are 85%. If the skills are 85%, in theory, that should tell you that you should be good at playing all of those reasonably well. So and the reason we've done cross games is because we wanted to attract the larger ecosystem of sim racers.
Yep.
So that's the theory behind it. And it's been welcoming.
And so every iteration going from year 1 to year 2 and now going into year 3, you've tested and learned and expanded and tweaked it. What does the Shadow Project look like going forward? Like, I wouldn't be as bold to say what's it look like in 5 years, because
no idea.
5 years in esports is 35 years in traditional sports. But yeah. What's on the horizon for the next 12 to 18 months?
Look, I think one of the interesting things we learned was I saw a slide earlier saying that console or PC was up there, but for us it's all mobile.
Yeah.
So when you hold a phone, you're driving like that. So mobile consumption's gone through the roof for us. So when you have a look at Asia Pacific, my region, you look at China, they're all upwardly mobile. Phones are cheap. Internet's good and cheap. Indonesia, you got half the population under the age of 27 or something like that. They've got good internet. India's coming online with cheap phones. So the mobile consumption, access to mobile and good internet is huge in this part of the world. And that's a huge opportunity for us and our partners. And we're talking to a bunch of telcos in China, etc. So we see a shift towards mobile and for our partners and brands to activate around that. And then where that leads from a commercial perspective, I mean, we've got globally, big global sort of e-commerce companies knocking on our door saying, hey, we've got the ecosystem, you've got the sizzle, it's all on mobile. What can we do to create a program that not only encourages people to come, play, potentially become a Formula One driver, but how do we sell them more stuff as well?
Yep. So
it's all coming together nicely, but 5 years, man, it's... I don't even know what's happening in 5 minutes.
No, exactly. You do have a commercial focus. How has, over the past couple of years with the McLaren Shadow Project and the earlier iterations of that, how have those conversations evolved over the last 3 years when you're saying, you know, here we are, an F1 company, racing is in our blood, 50 years, and now we're delving into this new piece. What was that sponsor education piece for your existing sponsors, but then starting to talk to new ones in the tech space? What's been the conversations from a commercial point of view from you?
I mean, look, we're never going to compete on broadcast. We're never going to compete with, you know, Dota or LOL and these sort of platforms. But I think what our brands and our partners and our new partners like about the story is that it's unique, and it's also McLaren. So you're getting in on a different part of, you know, you're buying a different component of McLaren, because trying to come on as a sponsor for the Formula One team, there's a lot of zeros at the end of that.
Yep.
But now you can be incubated into our commercial ecosystem and you can have that visibility. But more importantly, I think brands resonate with what we're trying to do. And they look at what's happened with Igor, that's what's happened with Rudy, and they've said, wow, these kids are inspiring. What you guys are doing help, you know, inspiring thousands and millions of kids all around the world to say, you know what, dreams do come true. And I think for the right brands, that resonates, and we can help with that storytelling.
And it's because, you know, and like you said, it's a completely different product to sell because, you know, with F1, you're looking at, there's the logo in the broadcast, here's all our eyeballs. So how are you going about selling it? Is it part content, part media buy, part IP association with McLaren?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of that. Less so the media buy, but more so storytelling and content. And we're also very lucky that our current Formula One driver, Lando Norris, is a huge gamer. He loves it. He's really good at it. And he's, you know, a rising star in the sport. And he's going to be around in the sport for a long time. So Lando is passionately involved in that. So everything that we do, we sprinkle a little bit of Lando on it. And all of a sudden you get coming in on a great sort of platform, and you've got access to a Formula One driver as well. So it's content creation, it's storytelling, and then the right events will attract, you know, a good amount of people as well.
So it is that content creator
sizzle,
and you're just putting out more content. It's reaching that gaming audience. It's engaging part of your traditional audience and that attractive younger demographic that multiple people have spoken about today.
Correct.
So then the only other thing is, for mine, like, what do you want? Like, it's not where do you think it's going to go, where do you want it to go?
I'd like to see, on a personal level,
Yep.
I like to see more girls get involved. I gave a keynote at Harvard not long ago where they asked me, why aren't there more women in the sports? And I've got two young daughters as well who are mad McLaren fans now, and, you know, have asked me on several occasions, Daddy, can I be a race car driver? My answer is, you can be whatever you want, especially a race car driver. So breaking down that stigma early on, and I think this sim racing movement will allow that. And I'd like to see more girls get into it. I'd like to see, developing nations like China, well, not really developing anymore, but India, like Africa,
Yep.
Southeast Asian countries, Thailand. I'd like to see more talent coming out of these sort of countries, and I'd love to see a Formula One champion from one of these countries in the not too distant future.
It sort of seems like it's like the story is starting to build there now, with Rudy Igor coming out of esports now, hopping in cars. I know, it's happened in other motorsports. NASCAR has a similar program of driving, and then they did the same, signed all the waivers, put them in a car, and they can drive okay. So it sort of seems, do you think that's going to be a tipping point, or a little bit of a validation of the space?
Yeah, validation, yes. But to be honest, that's really not why we started it.
Yeah,
it's kind of just organically happened that way. It's not why we started it to create another piece of McLaren that would resonate with a different demographic. And it was an experiment with Rudy that led us and that got him into a car.
Yep.
But now, even though it's not officially why we created it, but internally it's like, oh God, wonder what the next guy or girl's going to end up doing. And it's really, quite exciting. And you have a look at, when Igor won it last year, he came into the McLaren Technology Center to spend a bit of time with our engineers and racers. And he was already talking about downforce, but not explaining it as downforce. So these kids already have the raw knowledge around racing, but after a few months with us, he now got all technical and understood downforce, and now he's also racing in some live cars as well. So to see and help these young grassroots talent through our program, and whether we sign them or not, come out the other end, that's pretty cool.
I mean, it is, and like you said, whether they come out of the project and end up in one of your cars or someone else's cars, it's a success for what you've tried to do. And I guess it is reshaping what grassroots racing is. It's not karting anymore. There's other options, and it opens up for other people.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks to Dharpan. You can send him a tweet, Dharpan, DHARPAN, on Twitter, or connect with him on LinkedIn. The links to everything McLaren Shadow Project will be available at sportsgeekhq.com/246 and at sgesports.com. As always, if you want to chat about esports, go to sgesports.com to book a call. And as I said earlier, if you want to check out other episodes of Sports Geek, go to sportsgeekhq.com. Don't forget, Melbourne Esports Open is on this weekend. I'm recording this not knowing whether I've sold out the Melbourne Esports Open Tour, but we will be booking other slots if we do. So if you have not booked your spot now, please do so. Go to sgesports.com/MEO Tour. We're running a guided tour explaining the different titles and leagues and esports around the Melbourne and Olympic Park precinct. If you'd like to join myself and my General Manager of Esports, Brandon Defina, to learn more, we'd love to see you there. Until next episode, where I discuss Twitch and broadcasting in our final episode in this series, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.